Hello, my name is Hunter, the movie reviewing pony, because when it comes to cinema, humans cannot be trusted. And welcome to the next rendition of the aptly named Good or Bad, the review where I take the latest movies to hit the box office and critique them. I've been doing a lot of these. Disney. An empire founded on top of a cartoon mouse. Now, to be perfectly honest, that's pretty impressive. Of course, that was then and this is now, and now they're not very good. So that's my personal opinion of them. I don't respect any company that's run by corporate scumbags. Now, they may not be good, but their movies are good. For example, most of us have seen Wreck-It Ralph. All of us pretty much agree that that movie was amazing. In fact, pretty much the only complaint I have with that movie is that they got all these useless characters on the cover. Seriously, they're in like 1 or 2 scenes. Why is Sonic there? He's in 3 scenes, I counted. And then last year we had Frozen, which was yet another fantastic movie. And the only complaint I have about that movie is that I am so sick of hearing Let It Go. Then this year, advertisements started popping up for this. Now here's a small lesson on advertising. If we look at this poster, it boasts from the creators of Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen. Well, that's a better bragging lineup than Interstellar had. And I do have quite a few requests piling up requesting that I review this. So, Big Hero 6. Good or bad? After doing a bit of after-movie research, it turns out that this is actually based on a comic book series made by Marvel itself. This is yet another point in the movie's favor because Marvel Studios is absolutely amazing in what they do. I had never read the comics, nor had I ever heard that it even exists, so really I was going into this movie blind. Also, they slapped the Walt Disney Studios logo on it instead of Marvel, which confused me. Now, don't get me wrong, I am all for another movie adaptation of comic book heroes by Marvel. But I don't trust Disney. I haven't trusted Disney since Atlantis Milo's Return. In fact, note to self, review Atlantis Milo's Return. Anyway, trailers for this actually made the movie look absolutely amazing. Though then again, that's usually what a trailer tries to do, which is just common at this point. You gather up the biggest parts of the movie and then you pile them all into a trailer. I'm gonna be honest, I was looking forward to this one because it looked amazing. And by amazing, I mean it had a combination of action and cuteness, which is actually a formula that seemed to be dying off until recent years. And those who attempt it can't really do it right. This is, in turn, another point in Disney's favor because they're able to do cuteness and action correctly. Not to mention they had 2 movies backing them up for the advertising campaign, both of which were great films. At this point we were thinking, what could go wrong? The stars are aligned. Not to mention Marvel had a hand in this, an absolutely amazing studio. This movie seemed to be having no flaws with it whatsoever during the advertising campaign. It actually disturbed me how perfect this movie seemed to be turning out to become. So you're all asking now, good or bad? Very good, actually! Disney has had its disappointments in the past, but this was not one of them. The animation, fantastic. The setting, also fantastic. The story, sort of meh. The characters, fantastic. The humor, also fantastic. It's easy to look past Disney's flaws when they release something like this, because it's really, really good. And if that's not enough, there's plenty of eye candy in this movie. I also gotta love the characters in this movie. They've all got their interesting quirks and personalities that make them unique. For most people, characters are what make a movie what it is. And there's some pretty solid characters to be found in this movie. Also, there's a black guy in a Disney movie, which means they're getting better at that. Another great example of this would be Baymax, the big white robot in this movie that looks a little bit like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He doesn't just serve as comic relief, he's actually probably the most useful character in this movie. And the fact that they're combining the two shows that they're trying to do something different, unlike everybody else who just uses the comic relief for comic relief and nothing else. But even then, he fills the comic relief role quite well. Kids will find him funny, and adults will find him charming. It's also interesting how the robot functions. At the beginning, he's only going off of what he's programmed to do, but he evolves as a character, and it's actually interesting to see how it unfolds. Not to mention, his slow speed makes for some pretty funny moments in this movie. I also absolutely love the setting of this movie, San Francisco. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like, a combination of San Francisco and Tokyo. Now, I don't know how that came to be, maybe Japan won World War II or something, but I don't know. Point is, it leads to a very good setting and it allows them to add the eye candy of both cities. The character designs are pretty good too. They look nothing like they did in the original comics, but it does capture the feeling that they were probably going for. Not too cartoony, so they still look intimidating, but just cartoony enough that they're charming to look at for children. The style of this half-American, half-Japanese type setting is also done quite well. The only downside it has is the voice acting, but then again, half accents are difficult to pull off, so I'll let it slide. That said, the voice cast behind this is also pretty solid. Also, the villain is perfect. Once again, he isn't overpowered, which is something that I always hate in villains. He's also mysterious, and they wait a while to actually reveal who it is. All of these elements make him a pretty damn good villain. But, as is the case with most movies, this film is not perfect. It has flaws. Now granted, it doesn't have a lot of them, but to make up for it, it lacks in a few elements. For example, most of the main characters didn't get nearly enough screen time to consider them main characters. Not to mention, all of them were pretty underdeveloped. There's not a whole lot of backstory either. It just means they'd have to make up for this in the inevitable sequel, which I actually wouldn't mind happening. But another thing wrong with this movie is that the villain's motives are kinda flawed. I get where he's coming from, but it isn't really enough to do what he does. It's also never explained where he gets the resources to do what he does. Actually, it's never explained where anyone gets the resources to do anything that they do in this movie. I have the same problem with James Bond, though. You'd think that the authorities would catch on to the fact that the villain is buying 12 tons of uranium-238. By the way, that's not what the villain does in this movie. Now, I actually feel obligated to rant about something a little different with this movie. Believe it or not, I need to talk about the video game for this film. Mainly because how flawed it is. This was Disney's biggest advertising campaign of the year, not to mention their biggest movie of the year. They invested a ton of money in this movie, and the video game for it is a 2D side-scroller beat-em-up. The 3DS is capable of so much more. It shows that Disney Interactive Studios needs to get their shit together. Oh, and the mother is pretty freaking useless in this movie. There's a ton of opportunity for character development with her, which is never exploited. And it would only have taken up 5 more minutes of the film. At the minimum. It's the main character's goddamn mother. You think they would have put in a bit more character development with her. But in reality, she barely gets any screen time, which is why I can't find enough footage of her in the trailers. And this last thing I need to complain about is a minor spoiler, so you might want to mute the video. I'll put up a title that says when it's safe to unmute. Yet another goddamn character dies in this Disney movie in the same Disney format that they always do it when a character dies. They do it right at the beginning of the film so that all the kids will forget about the sad moment. But in actuality, Disney movies are the most depressing things ever made. Someone's always dying, someone's always depressed, it just makes for a boring and worn-out formula. They did that in Frozen too, and I complained about it there as well. Why is it that someone always dies in a Disney movie? Seriously, Disney, this is getting really predictable. But overall, I can look past all of these things because this film is pretty damn good. Sure, it's got flaws and lacks in certain areas, but there is a pretty decent film to be found here. So, what's my final verdict on it? 9.5. It's taken a while, but we finally have another candidate for my film of the year. One that can actually compete with the Lego Movie's 9.5. Some of the best movies out there are kids' movies now. The only non-kids movie I've seen that's gotten a higher score would be Gravity. I'm still counting on The Hobbit to blow us away, so I'm not going to decide on movie of the year just yet. But as a whole, this movie is fantastic. Great setting, it makes us laugh, and the characters are likable. The story is lacking, but you can look past that because the rest of the film's elements make up for it. Also, my supervisor just said that you have to stay after the credits for this movie because there is an after-credits scene. And overall, I recommend that you check this movie out. Adults will enjoy it, and kids will enjoy it. I still hate Disney, but I do enjoy their movies, so I gotta give them that. My name is Hunter, and this has been a Hunter Review. 'Cause we could